Zebulun, Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee, O Spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hello, good evening, good morning, whatever. This is the Abracast. I'm your host, John Towers. So we're kind of in this situation where I guess I used to say we were watching the end of Western civilization. You know, I did a bunch of things trying to remind everybody how cool we are. Western civilization was some of our highlights and stuff. We kind of got off track of that, but I have to tell you, looking through the news or watching what's happening going on around, I want to spend a little bit more time with you guys talking about current events, because I don't necessarily think all that's going on is the end of Western civilization. I also think we might be looking at World War III. And it's something that was avoidable. There's something weird in us, in our government, that's just marching towards this. Like they're salivating, wanting to do this. So I think we're going to be doing some bonus episodes just talking about how fucking crazy all this shit is. And the first one of these, the first one of these, I felt like we should just talk about the dystopian America. I know a young lady who loves dystopian young adult books, even though she's a grown adult. Anyhow, there's a whole movie genre based on these things. A few years ago, it was all Apocalyptica with, The Walking Dead and all of this. So that's still lingering around out here. So I just kind of wanted to touch base and just talk about the dystopian America of 2022. To kind of, I don't know, just get a baseline on what the fuck is going on and why. When it's like all of the shit that we're about to talk about, it seems like just 5 or 10 years ago, like this would be science fiction. So I have my vessel of the art here. The ice is quickly melting for some reason. Okay, so let's get into the first story that I got here, which is one that affects me. This is on a website called justthenews.com. Postal Service conducted surveillance on protesters with pro-gun, anti-Biden agendas, report. Investigation based on redacted documents obtained by the Cato Institute think tank. The U.S. Postal Service is reportedly monitoring protesters across the country, focusing on Americans with such interest as guns and Biden's election. Shouldn't everyone be interested in the election? Postal inspectors tracked the activities of gun rights activists gathering in Virginia and some demonstrations in Louisville, Kentucky after the police shooting of Breonna Taylor. The far-right groups going to Washington, D.C. after Biden's election, according to an investigation by the Washington Times. The Times reports the investigation is based on redacted documents obtained by a fellow at the Cato Institute think tank that developed think tank that detail postal inspectors spying from September 22 through to April 2021. Among the operations was a social media surveillance effort named the Internet Covert Operations Program. One apparent example of the Postal Service's surveillance, based upon the documents an Institute fellow obtained through the Freedom of Information Act request, is a redacted bulletin reportedly showing the agency's inspection services having tracked, quote, peaceful armed protests, unquote, at a Second Amendment rally for Lobby Day in Richmond, Virginia, January 18th, 2021. The gathering lasted approximately 2 hours, with members identifying themselves as affiliates of the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, and the Sons of Liberty. The bulletin reportedly reads, counter-protests from Black Lives Matter movement also attended, with heavy law enforcement presence. The demonstrations stayed peaceful in nature. So there you go. The Postal Service is spying on you via the internet. What? So that's going to lead me to the next big story here, which is on the WashingtonPost.com. Pentagon opens a sweeping review of clandestine psychological operations. This is something that we've talked about on the show since the beginning, is these use of social media and all this tech stuff to warp your mind, bro. Dr. Mindbender complaints about U.S. military's influence operations using Facebook and Twitter have raised concerns in the White House and federal agencies. This is from September, just a couple days ago, 19th, 2022, by Ellen Nakashima. The Pentagon has ordered a sweeping audit of how it conducts clandestine information warfare after major social media companies identified and took offline fake accounts suspected of being run by the U.S. military in violation of platform rules. Platform rules? What a joke. Colin Cahill, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, last week instructed the military commands that engage in psychological operations online to provide a full accounting of their activities by next month, after the White House and some federal agencies expressed mounting concerns over the Defense Department's attempted manipulation of audiences overseas, according to several defense and administration officials familiar with this matter. The whole thing is suspect. How do we know that they're just targeting people overseas? Like I said, just look around and see about the people that are going nuts for this war in Ukraine and Russia. I mean, everybody is like, nukes. Fuck yeah, man. Let's get some fucking nukes. I heard that Ukraine officially filed a request to be included in NATO, which, if they accept them, there's nothing that stops war with Russia. That's what NATO is all about, is a pact between, it's a military like agreement between these different countries, where if they're being attacked, they will provide a unified front. So if they take Ukraine into NATO, those all of these fuckers that are salivating about going to war, it's gonna fucking happen. The takedowns in recent years by Twitter and Facebook of more than 150 bogus personas and media sites created in the United States was disclosed last month by an internet research Graphica and the Stanford Internet Observatory. While the researchers did not attribute the sham accounts to the U.S. military, two officials familiar with the matter said that the U.S. Central Command, among those whose activities are facing scrutiny like other interviewed for this report, they spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive military operations. Researchers did not specify when the takedowns occurred, but those familiar with the matter said that they were within the past 2 or 3 years. Some were recent, they said, and evoked posts from the summer that advanced anti-Russian narratives citing the Kremlin's imperialist war in Ukraine and warning of other conflicts. Direct impact in Central Asian countries significantly, they found that the pretend personas employed tactics used by countries such as Russia and China did not gain much traction, and that overt accounts actually attracted more followers. CENTCOM, headquartered in Tampa, has purview over military operations across 21 countries in the Middle East, North Africa, and Central and South Asia. A spokesman declined to comment. Air Force Brigadier General Patrick Ryder, the Pentagon press secretary, said in a statement that the military's information operations support our national security priorities and must be conducted in compliance with relevant laws and policies. We are committed to enforcing those safeguards, he says. Spokesperson for Facebook and Twitter declined to comment. Well, here, let me comment for them. Get the fuck off of Facebook. Get the fuck off of Twitter. Just stop going to them. Oh, I'm such a hypocrite. I'm hooked on Instagram, but that's another story. According to researchers' reports, the account taken down included a made-up Persian language media site that shared contents reposted from U.S.-funded The Voice of America Farsi and Radio Free Europe. Another, it said, was linked to a Twitter handle that in the past had claimed to operate on behalf of CENTCOM. One fake account posted inflammatory tweets claiming that the relatives of a deceased Afghan refugee had reported bodies being returned from Iran with missing organs, according to the report. The tweet linked to a video that was a part of an article posted on a U.S. military-affiliated website. CENTCOM has not commented on whether these accounts were created by its personnel or contractors. If the organ harvesting tweet is shown to be CENTCOM's, one defense official said, it would absolutely be a violation of doctrine and training practices. It seems, it seems like there's moral and ethical complications as well. Independent of the report, the Washington Post has learned that in 2020, Facebook disabled fictitious personas created by CENTCOM to counter disinformation spread by China, suggesting the coronavirus was responsible for COVID-19. It was created at a U.S. Army lab in Fort Detrick, Maryland, according to officials familiar with the matter. The pseudo-profiles active in Facebook groups that conversed in Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, said, the official said, were used to amplify truthful information from the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention about the virus's origination in China. The U.S. government's use of the Earth's social media accounts, though authorized by law and policy, has stirred controversy inside the Biden administration, with the White House pressing the Pentagon to clarify and justify its policies. The White House agencies such as the State Department and even some officials within the Defense Department had been concerned that the policies were too broad, allowing leeway for tactics that even if used to spread truthful information, risked eroding U.S. credibility, several U.S. officials said. Our adversaries are absolutely operating in the information domain, said a second senior defense official. There are some who think we should do anything clandestine, that we shouldn't do anything clandestine in that space. Ceding entire domain to an adversary would be unwise, but we need stronger policy guardrails. I also want to know what they're pointing inwards. Spokeswoman for the National Security Council, which is part of the White House, declined to comment. Kahl disclosed his review at a virtual meeting convened by the National Security Council on Tuesday, saying he wants to know what types of operations have been carried out and who they're targeting. I would like to know as well what tools are being used and why military commanders have chosen those tactics and how effective they have been, several officials said. The message was essentially, you have to justify to me why you're doing these types of fucking things, the first defense official said. Pentagon policy and doctrine discourage the military from peddling falsehoods, but there are no specific rules mandating the use of truthful information for psychological operations. For instance, the military sometimes employs fictitious and satire for persuasion purposes, but generally the messages are supposed to stick to facts, the official said. In 2020, officers at Facebook and Twitter contacted the Pentagon to raise concerns about phony accounts they were having to remove suspicious they were associated with the military. That summer, David Agranovich, Facebook's director for global threat distribution, spoke to Christopher C. Miller, then assistant director for special operations / low intensity conflict, which oversees influence operations policy, warning him that if Facebook could sniff them out, so could U.S. adversaries. Several people familiar with the conversation said his point, one person said, was, guys, you got caught. That's a problem, unquote. Before Miller could take action, he was tapped to head a different agency, the National Counterterrorism Center. Then the November election happened and time ran out for the Trump administration to address the matter. Although Miller did spend the last few weeks of Trump's presidency serving as acting defense secretary. With the rise of Russia and China as strategic competitors, like, that's one way to put it, I guess. Military commanders have wanted to fight back, including online, and Congress supports that. Frustrated with perceived legal obstacles to the Defense Department's ability to conduct clandestine activities in cyberspace, Congress in late 2019 passed a law affirming that the military could conduct operations in the information environment to defend the United States and to push back against foreign disinformation. Aimed at undermining its interests, the measure known as Section 1631 allows the military to carry out clandestine psychological operations without crossing what the CIA had claimed as its covert authority, alleviating some of the friction that had hindered such operations previously. Combatant commanders got really excited, recalled the first defense official. They were very eager to utilize these new authorities. I'm sure they were. That the defense contractors were equally eager to land lucrative classified contracts to enable clandestine influence operations. At the same time, the official said military leaders were not trained to oversee technically complex operations conducted by contractors or coordinate such activities with other stakeholders elsewhere in the U.S. government. Last year, with the new administration in place, Facebook's Agranovich tried again. This time, he took his complaint to President Biden's Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber, Ann Newberg. Agranovich, who had worked at the NSC under Trump, told Newberger that Facebook was taking down fake accounts because it violated the company's terms of service, according to people familiar with the exchange. The accounts were easily detected by Facebook which, since Russia's campaign to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, has enhanced its ability to identify mock personas and sites. In some cases, the company had removed profiles which appeared to be associated with the military that promoted information deemed by fact checkers to be false, said a person familiar with the matter. Agranovich also spoke to officials at the Pentagon. His message was, quote, "We know what DOD is doing. It violates our policies. We will enforce our policies," unquote. And so, quote, "DOD should knock it off," unquote, said an official briefed on the matter. So if they're so eager to stick to their policies, like, again, ethical, moral problems all through Facebook and Twitter, not much to say. Like I'm not going to get into it. If you want to know what I think about all this stuff, just go back on the feature topic link at Abracast.com and find media manipulation, culture creation, all those topics in there. We talk a lot about how fucked up it is, how it's clearly freedom of speech and censorship issue, since these companies have gotten money from the federal government. Anyhow, in response to the White House concerns, Call ordered a review of military information support operations, or MISO, the Pentagon's moniker for psychological operations. A draft concluded that policies, training, and oversight all needed tightening, and that the coordination with other agencies, such as the State Department, and the CIA, needed strengthening, according to officials. The review also found that while there were cases in which fictitious information was pushed by the military, they were results of inadequate oversight. That's weird. Inadequate oversight of contractors and personal training, not systematic problems. Pentagon leadership did little with the review. Two officials said before Graphica and Stanford published their report on August 24th, which elicited a flurry of news coverage and questions for the military. The State Department and CIA have been perturbed by the military's use of clandestine tactics, offers at state have admonished the Defense Department, hey, don't amplify our policies using fake bullshit, they said, because we don't want to be seen as creating false grassroots efforts, they say. One diplomat put it this way: generally speaking, we shouldn't be employing the same kind of tactics that our adversaries are using, because the bottom line is we have the moral high ground. I don't believe that's true anymore. We are a society that is built on a certain set of values. I don't think that's true anymore. We promote those values around the world. I don't think that's true anymore. And when we use tactics like those, it just undermines our argument about who we are. Psychological operations to promote U.S. narratives overseas are nothing new in the military, but the popularity of Western social media across the globe has led to an expansion of tactics, including the use of artificial personas and images, sometimes called, quote, deep fakes, unquote. The logic is that the views expressed by what appears to be, say, an Afghan woman or an Iranian student might be more persuasive if they were openly pushed by the U.S. government. The majority of the military, that's funny because there is like a culture clash, sort of, like on, I guess, like on Twitter and Facebook. I guess you're just interacting with the people that you're networked with, right? But I used to spend time on Periscope for one reason or another, and it was always hilarious because, like, theoretically there could be no nudity on Periscope. However, they would, you'd be watching like a hot chick do the dishes or something, whatever. And like, there'd be 100 Indian guys, not Native American, like from the subcontinent. And they'd all be like, show us your bobs. Show us your bobs. Okay, calm down. The your Bob's. The majority of military's influence operations are overt, promoting U.S. policies in the Middle East, Asia, and elsewhere under its own name, officials said. But there are valid reason to use clandestine tactics, such as trying to infiltrate closed terrorist chat groups, they said, or having Newman at the post office spy on your Facebook account. What key issues for senior policymakers now is determining whether the military's execution of clandestine influence operations is delivering results. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Does our approach really have the potential for the return on investment we hoped for? Or is it just causing more challenges? One person familiar with the debate said. The report by Graphica and Stanford suggests that the clandestine activity did not have much of an impact anyways. It noted that the vast majority of posts and tweets reviewed received no more than a handful of likes or retweets, and only 19% of the concocted accounts had more than 1,000 followers. Tellingly, the report said, the two most followed assets in the data provided by Twitter were overt accounts that publicly declared a connection to the U.S. military. Clandestine influence operations have a role in support of military operations, but should be a narrow one with an intrusive oversight by military and civilian leadership. Michael Lumpkin, a former senior Pentagon official handling information operations policy and former head of the State Department's Global Engagement Center. Otherwise, we risk making more enemies than friends. There you go. It's my point of view that from just personally from an OPSEC point of view, from my OPSEC point of view, it's like you got to get out of this Twitter and Facebook. You got to get away from it. I think it's fucking poison. So the next story we're going to be talking about, remember, this is America, dystopian America, from the New York Post. Facebook silencing activity related to FBI whistleblower Steve Friend. So here we have the DOJ is completely corrupt. It's completely politicized. It's completely corrupt. When I was a kid, some part of me wanted to be like an FBI agent at some point in time. And, you get all this bullshit from it. Like, they're uncorruptible and, they're not allowed to, their feelings, don't get in the way. They're ethical and they're moral. And then the more you learn about the FBI, you're like, oh, it's always been fucked up. They've always been crazy fucked up. Fucking with Martin Luther King Jr., fucking with this guy, fucking with that guy. The shit that they pulled with the Elohim City and the Oklahoma City bomber, like, they've always been fucking kind of crazy and corrupt. So we have a whistleblower who steps up and he was like, yo, let's talk about all this bullshit. We'll talk about it. We'll get into the article here in a second. And Facebook's like, no, whoa. You can't say that on Facebook. You can't tell the truth about the FBI on Facebook. So Steve Friend was suspended after making whistleblower complaints about the Department of Justice. This is New York Post. I believe this is Miranda Devine. She wrote a great book about Hunter Biden's laptop. It's called The Laptop from Hell. If you haven't read it or listened to it, I highly recommend it. It ties into a lot of this stuff. More evidence of how vindictive, obsessive, and downright sinister Facebook is. It now appears to be monitoring private messages and suppressing materials related to the whistleblower complaint of heroic FBI Special Agent Steve Friend. After Friend's bombshell revelations last week in a whistleblower complaint to the Department of Justice, Inspector General His cause received an avalanche of public and private support, including from former FBI agents and conservative groups. As reported in this column, Friend's complaint alleges that the FBI has been manipulating case files management in order to falsely inflate the threat of domestic terrorism, and has been using unconstitutional and excessive force in efforts to persecute political opponents of the Biden administration. Friend, a SWAT team member in Florida, was suspended by the FBI last week after refusing to participate in what he regarded as an unnecessarily heavy-handed raid over a January 6th misdemeanor. On Sunday, Friend's wife's Facebook account was suspended after she responded to an offer of support from a local chapter of Moms for Liberty, a conservative group that advocates for parental rights. What can Moms for Liberty do for Steve Friend right now? Moms for Liberty had texted to a mutual friend, "We want to offer community support of fundraising, although we feel like it would likely be shut down." Of course it would be. Can you reach out to him and let him know that Moms for Liberty is thinking of him? And if we can provide any assistance, we are here. Mrs. Friend's response to Moms for Liberty using the private message on her personal Facebook account. In the message, she identifies herself as Steve Friend's wife, thanked them for their support, said her husband was in the process of obtaining permission from the FBI to speak publicly, and asked them to encourage their members to share his whistleblower story on their personal social media accounts. After about 30 minutes, Mrs. Friend received a notification from Facebook that her account had been suspended because account or activity on it doesn't follow community guidelines. The Moms for Liberty and Mrs. Friend's Facebook message disappeared. In its place was a notification saying message unavailable. Why is Facebook monitoring private messages and attempting to suppress materials related to Mr. Friend's protected whistleblower complaint? Were they asked to do so by the FBI? We reached out to Facebook late Sunday to find out, and we will let you know their response. So we know that the FBI tells Facebook what to do. Zuckerberg was on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about the Hunter Biden laptop, and in a nutshell, I don't want to speak for Mr. Zuckerberg or Data, the Android, or whoever, but he basically was like, hey, they came to us and said, this is bullshit. It's kind of like, you're going to go ahead and suppress this, right? It would be in your best interest, Data, the Android, if that is your real name. Okay. The Washington Examiner. This guy by the name of Paul Bedard wrote September 28th. Biased much? Media fact checkers find no Biden lies. Oh no, he doesn't lie. He just doesn't know what room he's in and where he's at or who he is or how to get off the stage. He talks to ghosts. And he reminisces about a relationship that he had with a girl when she was 12 and he was 30, but don't ask any questions about it. On a day when President Joe Biden's mental faculties are being questioned again, a new report suggests that the media is covering for the 79-year-old president in a way it never did for former President Donald Trump. I'll just come out and say it, or any other fucking president. In a studying media fact-checking under Biden and Trump, the Conservative Media Research Center said that while the Truth Police have found 0 examples of Biden lying or being 100% wrong despite his frequent verbal flubs and fabricated life stories, he's a known plagiarist. I don't know what else to tell you. If you're interested in all this Biden stuff, you can go to the feature topic link. He's got his own little section all about about Joe Biden. Extortion 1-7, all kinds of good Biden stuff. Well, what's more, said MRC News Busters editor Tim Graham, is the liberal media's fact checkers have targeted the president's critics by nearly 6-1 in their truth probes. In his review, the Peitner Institute PolitiFact, he wrote, over his first 20 months in office, Biden had 58 fact checks, while Biden critics were checked 338 times. Overall, there were 5.8 fact checks of Biden's critics for every one of the president. Surprisingly, he wrote, Biden was hit with no pants on fire ratings despite his often made odd and wrong comments and his mental confusion. On Wednesday, for example, he hosted an event and he called out for a lawmaker to be recognized, and that lawmaker, the late Representative Jackie Walorski, died in a car wreck in earlier August, and the White House issued a statement of sympathy. I mean, just because the White House offered a statement of sympathy, that you shouldn't really know, or you shouldn't really think that Biden is the one sitting there writing a statement of sympathy. But you would think that whoever was whoever wrote the speech, or whoever wrote the speech, whoever edited the speech, whoever spell checked the speech, whoever loaded the speech into the fucking teleprompter, someone should have been like, yo, isn't this fucking person dead? By contrast, Trump was dogged with the award. There were 0 pants on fire rulings in President Biden's first 20 months. By contrast, Donald Trump has 10 in that time span. Biden has only 6 in his entire career since PolitiFact began in 2007. Biden could say the evacuation of Afghanistan was an extraordinary success, and we still have 0% inflation, and there are no factual objections. On April 22nd, he claimed that he was a full professor for 4 years at the University of Pennsylvania, which is just wrong. He lies about his education all the time. I don't want to get revved up about it, but he's just a liar. Reporter, this is off a post from, or a tweet from Greg Price, blue checkmark. Reporter, the confusing part is why, if she and that family is on top of mind, does the president think that she's living and in the room? KGP, who's the press secretary, I don't find that confusing. Reporter, I have John Lennon on the top of my mind just about every day, but I'm not looking around for him. Okay, one more. We're going to do one more. This is from Breitbart. Google claims censoring Italy election winner Meloni's speech was a, quote, mistake, unquote. Google-owned YouTube restored a viral video of a speech from the winner of an Italian election, Giorgia Meloni, claiming that it was just mistakenly removed from the platform. Just nothing to see here. It was just mistakenly removed, but we'll put it back. The speech went viral after Meloni's win, but it had been posted to the platform without a problem since 2019. In the speech, she went viral across multiple platforms this week. Meloni gave a fiery defense of family, nation, religion, and basic truths about gender. Condemning international, that does not sound very radical to me. Condemning international elites from attempting to reduce people to, quote, numbers, unquote, without any identity. The video has been restored to YouTube in its original link. Breitbart News reported on YouTube censoring that the center-right politician and likely next Italian prime minister yesterday. Almost a full day after the video was taken down, now it admits it made a mistake and has restored the video. Upon careful review, we determined that this video is not violative of our community guidelines, and we have reinstated it, said a YouTube spokeswoman. We enforce our policies regardless of the speaker's political views, and when it is brought to our attention that the video had been mistakenly removed, we reviewed the content to take the appropriate action, including restoring the relevant video or channels, as we have done to this video. YouTube did not comment on why it took so long to restore the video, which consisted of mainstream traditionalist conservative arguments and no apparent violations of the platform's community guidelines. This was written by someone named Alum Bakahari. All right, well, so that's going to be it for the evening, or the day, whatever, the morning. You know what the fuck the deal is. But like I said, you know, you look around, if you're paying attention, I guess even if you're not paying attention, it just smacks you right in the face. Like, there's so much shit going on. The surveillance state that we kind of been talking about, the corruption of the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. All kinds of crazy shit. Our economy's collapsing. Check out the Creature from Jekyll Island episodes about the Fed. War is looming. We're sending all this money and equipment to the Ukraine. Putin's talking about nuclear weapon. No one knows what fucking gender they are anymore. Like, the world it's coming to an end. That's going to be the new tagline, is let's just pour a drink and just watch the fucking world go to shit. So, I don't have any sponsorships or whatever, but now is a good time to take a look at your cupboards. Take a look at the little first aid kit you have, you know, in the bathroom. Count your how many bullets you have. Like, you know, let's start, if you haven't already, I'm sure you guys have, but, you know, let's start thinking of this as like a first sergeant. What do we need? Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. And, you know, invest in some stuff, you know. I certainly am. So I'm John. This is the Abracast. We'll do, see you in a few days, I guess.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books at Abracast.com. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes, more bonus audio, additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Find the link to the Red Archive at Abracast.com.